Today's Gemara again is a longer Amud, that longer daf really, but not exceedingly difficult. Year of learning, Dr. Paul Koningsberg in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labush, and Ed Goldberg's cousin Nisan Hara Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malcolm Mann, Allah Shalom, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dove, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gittler, Avraham Meir ben Shimon, Cheryl Asher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Federbush, Oriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon, friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edel Bas Yaakov. Jill, Month of Learning by Jill and Perry Meltzer, in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef, by B. Pizer, in memory of her mother, Razel Bas Shammai, and her stepfather, Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi, by Josh and Carol Sanborn, in memory of his mother, Chiena Bas Aryeh Leib, and his father, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch, by Mel and Haran Haller, in memory of his mother, Fega Bas Yaakov, by Andrea and David Dolmy, in memory of her mother, Edel Tzina Bat Shimshon, by the friends of Bella Silverstein, Bela Bas Yaakov. We have a week of learning by Minnie Shavrik in memory of her husband, Yeshayahu ben Nehemiah Mordechai, as well as a week by Marcus and Arlene Lehashalom Taylorman, his mother, in memory of his mother-in-law, Esther Nachum Bat Nachum, and his father-in-law, Tuvia ben Yosef. Today being the 11th of March, Ellen Yeager is sponsoring a day of learning plus Torah fund in memory of her husband, Aryeh Lev ben Chaim Zev. Amen. Hashem is having a crank Rafia Velti Yeshir Hashem Lataliah, Machol B'nai Yisrael, a good gebenched yard.
Amen.
All right. Okay. We are on Kaf Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph. Hopefully the guys that are there in Shul will be getting on shortly. Remember, we finished up in the top of the Amud with this question of dissolving items, liquid into liquid, okay? And it said one thing was hot into cold, cold into hot, okay? And then it finished up with, but hot into hot, cold into cold, that does not dissolve. That's where we left off. Now, the rest of the Gemara is going to continue with that discussion that we saw of superstition, of mazikin, things like that nature. Okay, and as we go through that, we'll see again a variety of suggestions, attitudes, things like that over the next daf. Okay. Eventually, we'll get back to more appropriate Pesach, so to speak, elements. But we're now going to pick up, okay, on about, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 lines down from the top on Kaf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Okay, Amar Reish Lakish. Okay, it's just above the Tosafot Im Tchiletne. Okay, there. So Amar Reish Lakish, what is he telling us? Arba Advarim Ha'oseh Otan Damo Barosho. He says, following what we saw previously, there are 4 situations or occasions in which one, his blood is on his head. In other words, he can take his life into his own hands. Umitchayev b'nafsho, and he puts his life in danger. And Elohein, these are the following. Hanifne bein dekel lekotel, one who relieves himself in a space between a palm tree and a wall. Second, v'ha'over ben shnei dekalim, and one who passes between 2 palm trees. Third, v'hashotem mayim she'ulin, one who drinks borrowed water. And the fourth, v'ha'over al mayim shfuchin, va'afilu shefachto ishto befanav, one who steps over or pass over water that's been poured out, even if it was poured out by his wife. Now the Gemara is going to pick up and discuss each of these items in detail. First of all, Hanifne bein dekel lekotel. We said that was one who relieved himself in a space between a wall and a palm tree. Okay, what are we talking about? Okay, here we're saying, all right, lo amran, okay, ella delete le arba amot. That's if the amount of space between them is less than 4 amos. Aval it le arba amot, but if there is 4 amos between them, lit lan ba, then there's nothing to be concerned about. Lit le arba amot, and when we say that when there's not 4 amos or less, lo amran ela deleka dirka acharina. That's when we say that there's no other path, no other walkway. Aval ika dirka acharina, if there is another walkway, lit lanba, then there is nothing to it. Second example, v'ha'over ben shnei dekalim, one who passes between two date trees. Lo amran ela de lo paskinhu reshut harabim. Okay, we said this only in regards to a situation where no public thoroughfare passes between them. Since it's public, okay, he's less apt to have something happen to him. Aval paskinhu reshut harabim lit lanba. But if there passes through there a public domain, nothing there is not to it. Third example, hashotem mayim she'ulin. We said one who drank borrowed water. Okay, what does that mean? Lo amran ela deshalinhu katan. We said this only applies if the water was borrowed. In other words, water, let's say, taken out of a well or taken from a stream or things like that by a child, a minor. Aval gadol lit lanba. But if it were taken by an adult, there's nothing to it. An adult supposedly would examine the water first, okay, and therefore make sure nothing was in it. Va'afilu shailinhu katan. And even if it was borrowed by a minor, nami lo amram ela bisadeh de lo shchichi. Okay, except we're saying if the water was taken when one was out in the field and there's no one else around. Aval ba'ir de shchichi, but in other words, there's no other source of water around. But in a city, Deshchichi, where there are other sources of water, lit lan ba, there is nothing to it. Va'afilu b'sadeh, nami lo amran. And even in regards to a field, we see there too, okay, it doesn't apply, elamaya, okay, but that only applies to water. Aval chamra v'shikra, lit lan ba. But if we're talking about borrowing wine or borrowing beer, there's nothing to it. Okay, no problem with that. Okay. Fourth example, v'ha'over al mayim shfuchim, one who passes over, okay, steps over, let's say, water that was poured out, wastewater is usually what it's referring to. Lo amran ela lo af sakinhu ba'afra. That's assuming that they did not sprinkle dirt over it, right? Velo taf baho roka, or that they didn't spit, okay, any spittle into it. Aval af sakinhu o taf baho roka, but if they spread the dirt over it, or they put spittle into it, lit lanba, then there is no concern about it. Velo amran, eladelo avar alayhu shimsha. And in addition, we say that we don't say this unless it has been, the sun has passed over it. In other words, this water has been out there overnight, right? Velo avar alayhu shitin nigre, okay, and also that people, okay, haven't walked over it 60 steps. Avar alayhu shimsha. But if the sun has passed over it, in other words, it's been out there all day into the night, va'avar alayhu shitin nigri, okay, or that many people have passed over it, okay, 60 steps, lit lamba, then there is no concern about it. Velo amran, and we didn't say this.
Rabbi,
Yeah?
you're suggesting that 60 people have to put themselves in jeopardy for the one person not to be in jeopardy when he passes?
Well, I think what the implication is that if people have walked through it or stepped over it and nobody else has been hurt, then there's no fear of somebody over it. That's the implication. Okay. However, he's going to add something to this, right? Ela de lo rachiv chamra, in other words, that he wasn't riding on a donkey, right? Velo siyem masne, okay? Or that he wasn't wearing shoes. Aval rachiv chamra, but if he were riding on in other words, and his feet then were to go as a result through the water, the wastewater, okay? V'siyem masne, or he was wearing shoes. Litlan ba, then we have no. In other words, if he's above the water riding on a donkey, his feet don't come in contact with the wastewater. Or if he's wearing fairly closed shoes, then again, his feet don't come in contact with the wastewater. V'hani mili, hechedelek lemechash l'kshafim. And here we're also saying that one doesn't have to suspect witchcraft. Aval here we do have to suspect the possibility of witchcraft. Afalgav deika kol hani chayshinan. Even though we have all these other possibilities, chayshinan, we still need to be suspect. We still need to be concerned. For example, says the Gemara, okay. All right. Vahahu gava, like the certain person, says the Gemara. Dirachiv chamra, he was riding on a donkey. Misame, and What happened? His shoes, they got wet. His feet, he would have, his feet would sort of begins in his feet. Tanu Rabbanan, a new Braita. Okay, says the following: Tanu Rabbanan, Shlosha ein mematzein. And when we don't go between, the Eluhain, in other words, a person should not walk between, as a third item, between two other items. What are those two other items? Says the Gemara, V'lo mitmatza'in, we don't walk through. Ve'elu hein, what are they? Hakelev, dogs, v'hadekel, palm trees, v'ha'isha, and a woman. V'im mimatza'in, and if he sort of goes between them, ma'ita kante, what's his remedy? Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, the following: he should have some sort of incantation, some sort of statement. In other words, something that he can quick, or two psukim, okay? All right? And therefore that will help him in that situation. So what we're going to have is the following, right? Statement, as we're going to see in just a second. Okay, here we go. He says as follows: Niftach ba'el v'nafsik ba'el. He should say psukim that start in reference to God and end in reference to God. Okay, so the Koran, at least, and I assume the art scroll, I didn't have a chance to look it up there, says, one says the following psukim, okay? For there is no enchantment with Jacob, neither is for them like the lofty horn.
Rabbi Green, you're coming in and out. We lose part of what you're saying. Is there something wrong with your speaker?
Okay, I'm having a little problem with my Zoom for some reason. Okay, so you start with God's name, the pasuk, and you end. That's Bamidbar chapter 23. Okay, Inam, he says, are also Niftach below, V'nifsak below. Okay, or he could start with a verse that starts with no and ends with a verse that starts with no. That would be an earlier verse. The following: God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. When he hath said, will he not do it? When he hath spoken, will he not make it good? So those are samples. Hani Beitre, and then, okay, where in which a woman who was nida walked between them. Okay? In tchilat nidatahi, if it was the beginning of her nida period, horeget echad, one man ultimately might die from the idea that he wants to have relations with her and do something about it and get punished. הרגת אחד מהם, ועם סוף נידתה, have relations with her. Mai takante, what is the remedy? Niftach ba'el v'nafsik ba'el. Again, one begins a verse start referring to God and ends with a verse referring to God. Okay? Now another example. Hani tre nashe, diyadvan b'parshat drachim. A situation where, for example, there were these two women who were sitting on either side of the road at a crossroads, right? Chada b'hai gisa de one on one side of the road, b'chada be'idach gisa, and one on the other side. Mechaven of paihu lahadadi, and their faces were facing one to the other. Uvadai b'kshafim asikan, and certainly they must have been involved in witchcraft. Mai takante, what's the remedy? Ika dirka acharina, if there's another road to avoid that, lizilbe, travel along that one. Ve'ileka dirka acharina, and if there's no other road, ika inish acharina, if there's another person that you can walk with, bahade, along with him, what do? Nin katu liadaihu, that two people should hold hands, bahade hadade, one to the other, v'nichlifu, and they should change their position. In other words, the one on the right should go to the left, and the one on the left should move to the right. Ve'ileka inish achrina, and if there is no other person, nema hachi, he should say the following: Geret Azlat Asya Blusia. Okay, these are names of demons. Altla Bechik Kibel. Okay, that these demons can be killed with an arrow or a crossbow. Hi, okay, and we find one. Hi man, the paga beiteta beidna desalka mitvilat mitzvah. Okay. If he advances and tries to have relations with her first, Akhdal Kadma de Mishamsha, if she's the one, okay, that advances to have relations first, Achdala Ledi of spirit of immorality. My takan. What's the remedy? Lema hachi. They should say the following: Shofech buz al nedivim vayitem betohu lo derech. Again, citing another pasuk that's not the approach to follow. Okay. Now, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, he says as follows: My dichtiv. Since we cited a pasuk, how about the following pasuk? What does it refer to? Gam ki elech begeit salmovet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me. Zeh hayashen b'tzel dekel yechidi. That may refer to one who sleeps under the shade of a single palm tree. Ubetzel levana, or he sleeps alone under the shade of the moon. Ubetzel dekel yechidi, lo amran, ela de lo nafil tula dechav re eluya. Okay, and when we said that it's the shade of a single palm tree, we did not say it in a situation where the shade of another tree, a neighboring tree, also covered him. In other words, it was shade, but it was from a neighboring tree and not that initial tree. Okay? Aval nafal tula dechavre eluye, but if the shade from a neighboring tree covers him, falls over him, lit lan ba, then there's nothing to it, not to be concerned. Elaha, Tanya, but rather, says the Gemara, what about the following Braita that teaches this? Hayoshen b'tseil dekel yechidi b'chatzer, one who sleeps under the shade, okay, of a single palm tree in a courtyard. V'hayoshen b'tseil levana, and one who sleeps under the shade of the moon. Damo b'rosho, he takes his life in his hands. Hey chidami, how is that possible? Ilema delo nafal tula dechavre iluya. If we're saying that the shade from a neighboring tree does not fall on him or cover him, afilu b'sadenami, then even if he's out in the field, it's dangerous, not just in a courtyard. Ella lav shmamina, but rather, don't we learn from this? Bechatzer, in a courtyard, af al gav denafil tula dechavre iluye, in a courtyard, even though it may be that the shade of another tree is going to cover him, shmamina. Therefore, we learn from this, uvetzela shalevana, okay? In other words, we learn that in any case, one should be very careful sleeping under the shade of a palm tree. Okay? Remember what happened could be that it's a date palm, a huge cluster of dates could fall, all right? Or a branch could fall, right? What happens? And in regard day, if what happened was the moon started in the and went to the west. Aval b'madinachata. Okay, but at the end of the month, when the shadow is in the east of the moon, lit lanba, then there's nothing to worry about it. Okay, let's go over now to Kaf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Okay, we find the following. Hare Haiman demafne agid da dedikla. There was a situation where a person, okay, what did he do? He relieved himself, okay, on the stump of a palm tree. What happened? Achdale lidide ruach palga. He was seized by some sort of a illness, okay? Ruach palga, a half spirit. Now, the Koran suggested, in other words, half his head had some sort of a problem. In other words, he had a migraine headache. Vahaiman dematzle reshe agirda dedikla. Okay, or about the following man who rested his head, okay, on the stump of a palm tree, right? Achdale ruach tsarara. As a result, there too, he would be struck by some sort of illness and the sort of neck or jaundice. A third example, Haiman de pas e adikla. You have a person that steps over the stump of the palm tree. E miktil, if the tree has been chopped down, katil. There's a good chance that that person himself will also be chopped down. In other words, die. Iakar, okay, if the stump had been uprooted, mi'akar umayit, there's a good chance that that person will then himself be uprooted and die. In other words, all of these superstitions associated with the stump of the. Okay. Remember that we are seeing this because the idea being that there are many shadim or mazikin that dwell in palm trees. Okay. So the Gemara continues now. Hani mili delo manach kare iluya. Here it's a situation where he didn't put his legs on it. Okay. Aval manach kare iluya lit lanba. But if he actually didn't just step over it, but he put his foot down on it, okay, to step, so to speak, on top of it, continue, there's nothing to it. Now, again, a situation of superstition. Chamisha tule have.
Rabbi Green, you referred to this as a superstition, but it did make it into the Gemara.
Right.
So
okay, because remember they said in Bavel they were more concerned about these kinds of things.
okay.
More concerned with the shady mazikin. Okay, so in other words, what they're trying to do is suggest that if you're concerned about these things, are there remedies by which you can address it? Now, apparently there was a lot of concern about certain trees, as we're going to see in a moment, that could have been cause harm. And I'm assuming it's still connected with the issue of the shadim. Okay, Chamisha tulei have, that there were 5 varieties, examples of shadows, shades, right? Tula de dikla yechida, the shade of a single palm tree. Tula de chan, that's the shadow of a caper bush. Tula de parcha, that's the shadow of a carob tree. Tula de zardata, that's the shadow of a what's called a sorb, S-O-R-B tree. Right? And there are others who say also, Aftula da Arba, the shadow, right? So he said that, right? The shadow there of what we said earlier. Okay. Klala de Milta. What's the general rule? Okay. And here, Bob, this might, right? Kol de nafish anfe, spread branches. Okay. And therefore create okay, right, creating a lot of shade. Okay, the called de cache
Rabbi, we're hearing every other word. You're breaking up terribly.
levar mechrumasha. Okay, with the exclusion of a certain tree called the mechrumasha. Afagav de cache silve, even though its wood is hard, lo cache tule, its else one can say to the shade, to the demon, okay, that that is there to exit, to leave, okay. Machrumasa the ihu hu de katil avuch, okay. Namely, why? Because we have a situation, okay, where the following says, okay, the amra la sheda lebara, okay, that a female demon said to her son, pirche nafshech, leave from that particular tree, right? The machrumasa, okay, that tree, the ihuhu de kat, because it was in that tree that your father got killed. V'katil lidide, and the Gemara tells us that the son of that demon also got killed there. Chazina l'Rav Kahana, the parish mikulhu tule. Says Rav Ashi, testifying, witnessing, that I saw Rav Kahana, who would get away from any kind of shade, any kind of shadows. Okay, Be Pirche. Okay, so now we see another discussion of the various trees. What kind of demons lived in the Be Pirche? Okay, in the caperbush tree, Ruchi, that kind. The Be Zardata, what kind of demons lived in the lotus carob tree? Okay, Sheda, shady. The Be Igre, what kind of lived in gardens? Rishfe. Okay, Lamai Nafkamina. So what's the difference in knowing the variety, the names, the different kinds of demons? Lekamia, for the writing of an amulet. Now, furthermore, the Be Pirche, okay, and again regarding that carob tree, Biria she'en la'einayim. It's a demon that doesn't have eyes. Lamai nafkamina. So what's the result? What's the benefit of knowing that? Legzuze and able to flee, to run away from diagonals. Zimnechada hava azil tsurba merabanan. One time, he says, a rabbinic student went out, la'afnuye lebe parche, to relieve himself by a caper bush tree. Shama, that right, that as he was coming close, v'gazela, okay, and he fled away. Ki azla chavke ledikle. They ran and he ran and he went and grabbed a palm tree. Savach dikla upakahi. What happened was then the demon ran after him. It grabbed hold of the tree and the demon, and it exploded. Okay, so now going on. Okay, what happened? Right, uparcha. Right, the Be Zardata Shade. Okay, we said that the demons living in the sorb tree, okay, were called shadim. Okay, and we have a further story. Ha Zardata Lo Pachta Mishitim Shidi. Okay, and there were no less than 60 demons. Okay, what difference does that make? Lemichtav la kamia. In order for the writing of I'm going to say proper, okay, and we see a situation, says the story, where there was a certain official, Demata, he went out, Vekai gabe zardata, the havasamich lamata, and he was standing by this sorb tree that was near the city. Okay, now the royal officials wore certain garments to designate their status, which were not dissimilar to some of the kinds of garments that the Chachamim wore as well. We have to keep that in mind, right? We're about to sort of put him in danger, attack him, and put his life in danger. Ata lahahu mirabanan. Okay, along came one of the housed, let's say, 60 demons. But he knew there were demons in the sorb tree. So what did he do? Katav la kamia lechada sheda. He wrote an amulet against one demon. Shama, okay? Tatalu chinga begave. Okay, the demon okay, and they began celebrating. All right, Vikamashru Hachi, and they began singing, making fun of the following. Demar Kitsurba, right, the cloak or the headdress, the scarf of the master, okay, is like that of the rabbi students. And therefore, Badikna Bey Bama. And we examine that this student knows he didn't know that there were 60 shadim instead. Okay, now what happened? Hahumi Rabbanan Diada Dizaradata Shitin Shide tree had 60 shadim in it. Katavla Kamiya Shitin Shidi. He wrote an amulet for 60 demons. Okay, Shema. The demons said to one another, we have to clear out of here. Okay. Now, in another example, okay, from the Torah, okay, we have a situation where one of the demons, so to speak, is actually mentioned. Okay, in Dvarim chapter 32, it says, right, the wasting of hunger and the devouring of the fiery bolt and bitter destruction, things of the dust, etc. And in that phrase in the Hebrew, it refers to Ketev Meriri. Okay, so that's the demon, right? Trei Kitvei Havu. There are two kinds of those demons. Chad Mekmei Tihara, one that exists before noon, V'chad Mibatar Tihara, and one that exists after noon. The Mekame Tihara, the one before noon, Ketev Meriri Shmo, that's its name, Ketev Meriri, Umechaze Be Kada Dechama, and it looks like the jug on a bowl of kutach, v'hadar bechasha. Okay, and what happens, like as if it has a spoon, okay, coming out of it. The batar tahara, the one afternoon, ketev yeshut saharayim shmo. That's its name, the ketev of the afternoon. Umechaze be karna de eza, and it looks like the horn of a goat. V'hadar be kanfeya, and it spins around inside like a sieve, right? Round like a sieve. Okay. Abai hava shakil v'azil. Abai would take and go out. Va'azil Rav Papa mimina. In other words, Abai was out walking, and two colleagues were with him. Along one was Rav Papa on his right, V'Rav Huna Bered the Rav Yoshua Mismole was on his left. Abai suddenly saw what? Chazia lahahu ketev meriri, the ka'ate la'ape dismale. And he saw the demon ketev meriri coming towards him on his left. Ahadra l'Rav Papa l'smale, l'Rav Huna bere the Rav Yoshua l'yamine. And he switched his two colleagues the places where they were walking, right? Rav Papa to his left, and Rav Huna bere the Rav Yoshua to his right. And so Rav Papa says to him, Anna, my shna de lo chashashli? Me, what's the reason that you weren't concerned for my welfare? Amarle at sha'ata kayemet lach. You have good fortune. The hour, so to speak, is shining upon you. Okay? In your learning, in your finances, things like that, and therefore the demon would not attack you. What happens? Mechad betamuz ad shisar be v'dai shchiche. From the 1st of Tammuz to the 16th of Tammuz, they're certainly found around. Safek lo shchiche. After that, it's questionable whether they are found or questionable if they're not found. Mishtachache betule dechatzva. Okay, and where are they found? They are found in plants. Okay, one commentary said it's chatsuva grass. Another said it was the base of a sea squill plant. Okay, delo chatzar gamide. Okay, that's smaller than a cubit. Okay, ubetule de tzafra. Okay, and it's nullified at night. Upane de lo have garmida says, and this is so long as it's no larger than a cubit. The ikar betule the beit kise, and a significant place where they can be found, okay, is around the privy. Now, Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Hani tlat mile yahav arbona l'nahora. Okay, he says these three things, okay, are items that, let's call it, can cause blindness for one's sight. Okay, what are they? Min, okay, man desarik reisha yavesh, a person who combs his hair when it's dry. Okay. Second, uman deshate tif, one who drinks out of a barrel the last drops of the liquid. Uman desiem misane ademaitane kara, and one who puts on his shoes on wet feet. Okay. Now, Tala'ai bebeta, okay, so that's also things that could cause harm to a person. Another statement, Tala'ai bebeta, hanging things in one's house, kashe la'aniyuta, may lead to poverty. Kida'amre inshe, as people suggest, as people say, tala silta, okay, if he tala mizone, okay, namely, if he hangs his sustenance, his foodstuffs out, right? Tala mizone, he's allowing his food thing, normal food, to hang, which could either be destroyed lost, stolen, things like that. Velo amran el rifta. And we didn't say this except in regards to bread, things that people normally hang, okay? Lit lanba, then there's no reason to deal with it, worry about it. Why? Or that's how people usually do. Now, another example, pe'ere baveta. If there's a lot of bran in the house, kashela anyuta, that can lead to poverty, right? Why? Okay. Neshora baveta. If there are a lot of scraps of bread around, kashela anyuta, that also can lead to poverty. Says the Gemara, why? Balele Shabbatot, ubalele revi'it, okay? On Friday nights and other nights, Sharu Mazikin Iluye, okay? Namely, that even if it's a small amount, demons tend to feed and gather on these items. Okay? Now, Isra de Mazone, Nakid Shmei, the angel, okay, that is a food, Nakid, okay, which is a play on the words Naki, clean, is its name. Isra de Aniyuta, okay, if you want to call it angel, demon of poverty, Naval Shmei, okay. Naval is again a play on the word filth, okay. Nevela, for example, is its name. Sa'a apuma dechatzva, okay, putting a plate on the top of a jug, kashelanyuta, is going to lead to poverty. Why? Man deshate maya b'tzai. Why? Because where a person drinks from a plate, okay, kashe livruke, okay, it could result in an eyesore. Okay, da'achil tachle, velo mashe yade, one who eats cress and doesn't wash their hands, mafchid tlaten yomin, okay, again, is going to bring some sort of fear or concern for 3 days. Right? Now we're going to stop there because the rest of the Gemara on Kaf Yud Bet, which we'll do tomorrow, okay? Sorry. Actually, that is Shabbos' daf. So we'll finish when we said we'll give everybody a little break over Shabbos. It's a long daf tomorrow, and Shabbos naturally. And so we'll try to cover as much as we can, but it continues with these other concerns about personal behavior and speculation that it could lead to illness, or it could lead to other kinds of situations. Right? And again, I point out, thanks to the question, that if these things occur, they're there in the Gemara to see what the sages suggested, what the Chachamim suggested as remedies for some of these situations. Aside from the witchcraft and all of that, we can see here clearly that also there is some, okay? So again, take care, everybody.